Hey, welcome back to A Faster Me. This is the Redlands Criterium. It's kind of part of the Redlands Bicycle Classic. You got the P12s racing, the stage race portion of this event. And on Sunday, it's kind of a pretty cool dual event. This is the kind of the amateur crit side, which is a small crit. You can see the map up in the top left. And the pros race a different circuit for their crit. It's kind of more of a figure eight. And what's cool is the pro women just took off a little bit, I believe before this race or after, I can't remember. But what they do is they start here, they go out and do like a road race, and then they finish here with a few laps around this circuit to, before the finish. So it's kind of cool, unique event. The men's pro field does the same thing. So this is the women's 3, 4, 5 mentored race. And those are the two mentors in front of them right there. Melissa Locker in the red shoes. And I'm not sure the other lady's name. But yeah, they do a good job of mentoring the race. I'm not exactly a big fan of mentored races, but it is what it is. And, the event promoters and organizers have, that luxury of mentoring a race. And what I mean by I'm not a big fan of mentored races, it's not anything to do with mentoring a group or, having instruction and education. I just think it shouldn't be in an official race capacity. So I think we need to find a way to offer more mentored crit practices and things like that. And racing is like reserved for competition without interference, in my opinion. So, and that's all it is my opinion. It's not a knock or anything like that. I think we all knew going into it that it's a mentored race, so it's not a complaint or anything like that. I just wish there's a little more education involved before people start racing. So anyway, the mentors are up front setting the pace and showing like a proper line or just the more efficient line. And then after they do 2 laps, I wouldn't say neutral, but it's just 2 laps that they're going to kind of show the pace and the line or whatever. Not the pace necessarily, but the proper line, and then just show where some of the hazards are, things like that. Then they'll fall back and kind of tag team the race and see if anyone needs help, talk to people about tactics, just things of that nature. So it is very educational, and I think both women did a great job of mentoring the race. It's just something that I just wanted to speak on a little bit in general, just so we can grow the sport in a way where before you ever do a race, you already come in with a decent amount of education instead of trying to figure it out while you're, at a high intensity, in a high intensity situation. So anyway. So this is the camera of Marlaina Bemis. Marlaina is our road race captain for PAA. You guys have seen her on some of Ellen's videos. And this race is going to be just all from her perspective. And I'm going to just do, the normal breakdown analysis. Marlaina's not available right now only because I'm leaving town. So this was like basically the only time I can get the video out before I get too backed up with too many videos. So after this lap here, the 2 mentors are going to pull off, and then the race will start. So Marlaina's a Cat 4, pretty close to catting up to a Cat 3, probably in another race or so. She's also one of the athletes that I coach. You guys probably already know, but I coach a number of athletes. Usually most of them are Cat 3, 4, and 5. Some soon to be Cat 2. But the race is gone now, and that's Jules off the front from Major Motion, and she's just setting tempo, trying to get a good start and pick the pace up a little bit. There's not a big field today. Don't know exactly why. Maybe, I'm not exactly sure why. There's not a big field. I think there's only like 10 riders in the field. And so it's going to be stretched out from the beginning, and drafting is going to be at a minimum. So you're going to really need to stay tucked in unless you want to do your own effort around this circuit. Unfortunately, Ellen found out the hard way and got separated and ended up doing a big TT event by herself. So that's Melissa Haley right there on the attack with Emmy on her wheel trying to run it down. And Melissa's a very aggressive rider, and I mean that in a good way. She's always like here, ready to give it her all in attack. So she's attacking, trying to just test the water, see if she can get off the front, and just see how easy it is or how hard it is to break away on this course. This is a very technical course. It's not like most of our courses out here in California, which are mostly like four corner crits, pretty flat with like 1, 2, or 3% hill, something like that. So this one, same thing. It only has like 2% hill, which is right here on the front straight. But some of the turns are fairly technical, with 2 of them being decreasing radius, then the chicane in the middle, and some of them having a little camber to them or being off camber. So that's pretty technical for a California crit. So anyway, as you can see, Marlaina, I spoke about it before, Tour de Marietta. Marlaina has loads of power. She really doesn't have too many problems running things down or just holding high watts for a long time. She puts in a little effort here, kind of brings Melissa back a little bit. Melissa faded a little bit as well. And, it's just, she knows Melissa's, I think, the only Cat 3 in this race. So for the most part, Melissa's going to be her main competition. It's no disrespect to the other girls or anything either. They're all strong riders. Emmy's a really strong rider. Jules from Major Motion is having a great year as well. Ashley's having a great year, but her and Marlaina are teammates. Ellen's been racing really well also. So there's a bunch of strong girls in the race, but Melissa's a front runner in every race that she's in, whether it be a P1-2-3 race, a 3-4 race, or a 3-4-5 race. So they know Melissa's very strong competition. So Melissa's still putting in a hard effort here and keeping this little distance here. Marlaina's slowly running it down, and she's gonna bring it back shortly. So yeah, if you guys are watching the videos, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. I used to not be a fan of soliciting people to subscribe or like, but we're really trying to put out a lot of videos this year. We're doing a lot of races, and a lot of people watch the videos, and the more likes you have on the video, the more it hits that algorithm and pushes people towards it. So if anyone searches cycling or bike racing or any of that, it's a higher chance that our videos will pop up. And we're going to start expanding, doing other people's videos as well, like some guest rides. So I'm going to talk about some line choices as I normally do throughout this video. So please, no one take offense to it or anything. I know all of these women in this race. So I don't know all of them well, but I know them enough that I've had conversations with them and stuff like that. So, but yeah, some of the line choices I would say aren't the best. And it's funny because in this particular race, like I said, because of how technical the course is, you really need to pick some of your lines carefully. If not, you have a chance of, bottoming out one of your inside peg or your inside pedal if you decide to corner through the pedal. And then not only that, anytime you have decreasing radius turns, you really just need to be careful of how you initiate turn entry. So, and the 2 decreasing radius turns, I'll show you here. The one is at the top. It's kind of like a hairpin. You can take it at different angles. It just really depends on the speed you're going. The faster you're going, the wider you kind of have to take it. Kind of how Marlaina's doing it now. How she's taking this wide approach here. The faster you go, the wider you kind of have to take it. And it just sets you up a little bit better to be pointed up the road once you make the hairpin. And see, the danger of taking it tight, Marlaina takes it wide here, but here, the danger of taking it tight is it forces you over to the left. And if you're over to the left at lean angle, as you can see, it's kind of off camber. It dips into the gutter there, and you can easily wash out at a higher speed. First, you have the risk of bottoming out your pedal, and then the second risk is sliding out on off camber, which happened to one of our friends, Odin, in in the Cat 3 race. He was on his way to victory and slid out solo there, solo crash, and ended up, just being able to barely finish the race. So here's the same thing. It's not off camber necessarily. It is to a degree, but not at your lean angle. But this is a very fast section, and usually you're over 30 miles per hour coming here, at least in our race, and you'd run it a lot wider. But at 25 miles per hour, you don't have to go as far left here. You can come in, hit an apex there, run it a little bit wide, and keep going. You add, 5 miles per hour to that, and then you have to take it a little bit wider. You don't have to, but it's just a little bit better line, taking it with a little bit wider approach, and then make sure your bike's headed up the road by the time you're exiting the turn. So this is Ashley Baker here. Ashley raced really well. This is only like her 5th race, I believe. And she goes to the front here to help set tempo a little bit. One of our plan this week, we knew it was a small field and we knew it was pretty technical, especially with the chicane. And like I said from the beginning, a lot of our crits out here in California are not technical. So we knew a lot of people would not be really used to taking those type of corners at speed. So our plan was trying to get Marlaina in a breakaway or to breakaway solo, either way. So Ashley does a great job coming up here, setting tempo a little bit, stretching it out a little bit. Even though they're not going really hard here, we didn't want her to really, burn herself out or anything, but we definitely just want to keep it stretched. And then when the opportunity arrives, give Marlaina a chance to break away.
You guys take their own grade.
So as you can see here, they're stretched out single file, means they're going pretty fast. I want to say they average just about 23 miles per hour on this race. I can't remember the exact average. I think in our race we averaged just about 26, but in the women's pro race, I want to say they averaged 24. So this race is moving actually pretty fast, just 1 mile per hour slower than the women's pro race. And again, this is a mentored 345, so to be 1 mile per hour off the speed of the pro race is pretty good. So here, as it's slowing down a little bit, and I'm over to the left there yelling, giving Marlaina instructions on like how to approach the race. But as it's slowing down a little bit here, it's just a matter of time before someone attacks again. So as you can see here, Jules takes it a little bit tighter. But again, it just depends on the speed you're going to take it at. But what I would say, if you take it tight like that, you probably should run it to the left. You scrub a little speed when you continue the turn to the right to be in the middle of the road, when really you can be on the left side of the road here and keep a little bit higher speed. There goes Melissa. Oh, I guess she was just grabbing back onto the end of the back of the wheel there. And right there where Marlaina just went through that apex, that's a pretty good dip there. To a degree, it adds camber, so you really don't have that big of a chance of sliding out or crashing there. But it is a little disruptive. And the thing you can do is bottom out a peg there, though. A pedal, sorry. I'd say peg because I'm used to motorcycle racing. But you can definitely bottom out your pedal there. So now that Jules set the pace, she kind of rotated out, jumped back in here, and then there goes Ashley back to the front, setting the pace again, just kind of controlling the peloton. You don't want it to get too fast because obviously you can't break away if it's too fast. So Ashley does a great job of kind of setting it up here. And that's Emmy in front of us. It's good to see her back. She had a crash in Victorville, so she was down for a little while, and it's great to see her back. Super competitive and super strong rider. So there's a mentor again here, just stepping in, trying to give instructions. Just little tips that they will give people here and there. Could be strategy, it could be form, could be a lot of things. So here again, I just think if you guys, I say you guys, so there's Melissa on the attack and Emmy jumping on her wheel again. Marlaina does a nice acceleration here, but not using too much energy. But yeah, so you want to take a little bit wider approach here. As you see, Melissa was pointed more up the road and Emmy went a little bit more towards the fence, and that's just because of the angle that they hit that first turn at. You always want to set up for the next turn. So when you take something like that where it's a quick 1-2, you're really setting up for the second turn more so than you are the first turn. It's really not about entry speed into a turn, it's more about exit. So here when Marlaina comes by, I'm going to tell her to go with Melissa. Melissa has a pretty good break there, and I'm going to tell her to go with Melissa if she can and, work with her and just extend the breakaway. Both of them two are pretty much, I would say, consistently the two strongest in the race. They're both consistently at the front. So, and Melissa's a Cat 3. She's used to breaking away even in the P123 races. She'll break away for her team for a little while and, kind of do a little tag team breakaway. So Marlaina's turn there was pretty much perfect in my opinion. If you want to take it wide, hit the apex, and then run it wide, and see now they're on the left side of the double yellow here, this is a much better angle to hit this chicane instead of being right of the double yellow. You want to be on this left side here, and it gives you a better angle into the chicane and sets up the second turn perfectly to get out of the chicane. And as you can tell, she pretty much caught Melissa fairly easily. So now with them together, they can work together and kind of extend this lead on the pack. She could do a little better job of drafting there just to save a little energy, even though she's not doing too many watts. And see here, I like this approach being a little bit wider and being pointed up the road a little bit more without having to turn as sharp as, say, Melissa did right there. So I believe here they have a 2-second gap, and as they pass our tent, this is our tent right there to the left. I tell them they have a 2-second gap, but to keep working. And the reason why I say keep working is I can see the girls behind them were in the red trying to catch up. As you see, Marlaina's doing 350 to 400 watts. She can do that for a decent amount of time. Like I said, she has a lot of power. So there was no doubt in my mind that she could easily, extend this with Melissa and Breakaway. I think she's just kind of looking back there, just checking to see how big their gap is. But, Marlaina hasn't really been a breakaway rider. She has the ability to be a breakaway rider, but for the most part, she has a good sprint as well. So she typically waits till the sprint instead of breaking away. And she usually doesn't initiate the breakaway either. So, but it's a great job by her here, just trusting her fitness and trusting her ability and, going with the break. And that was a pretty good turn there again. So instead of turning hard to the right, you do want to push it out to the left there and just keep your momentum. So I believe when they come by this time, we don't have a rear view camera, but when they come by this time, I believe their lead is up to like 15 seconds. So I tell them it's a 15-second gap on this one, and they keep pushing. She's doing a little bit too much work because I think Melissa's just there on her wheel. And, Melissa's a very strong rider as well, very smart. Of course, if Melissa's not going to volunteer to take that pull. So, so I think she's just doing a little bit too much work, needs to flick an elbow and have Melissa come through. And now that they've established the break, they definitely, I would say she definitely would, should basically insist that, they work evenly now. So again here, I think Melissa takes just a little bit too tight of an approach here. Needs to be a little wider. And It's not that you can't take it, you can, especially single file, but I just think you can carry a little bit more speed, starting that off a little bit wider. And here, for this turn, it's a give and take. You can be tight in here, especially at the speed they're going. If you look at my video, we're way to the left, but we are almost always going over 30 or close to 30 when we hit that spot there. So shout out to the young lady there. Saw her and her dad at the beginning of the race. So yeah, she's always out here giving a great effort. So here for Marlaina, since she pulled the last like lap and a half, you know, I am her coach, so I would just tell her, don't take as long of a pull now. Now that you guys are together, these pulls need to be even. I think Marlaina sometimes was pulling for a lap and a half, and then Melissa would pull for half a lap, which is smart. There's nothing wrong with that. And Melissa, I'm not knocking you. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to protect yourself anytime you're in a breakaway and you don't know if someone's going to try to counter or break you, and you need to, you know, conserve some of that energy. So right there, that was a good balance of pulling right there. You know, let's say a good 30 seconds each or something. Little bit better angle here. The only thing I would say there is just make your turn in slightly later. But it's fine. When you guys are, you know, two up like this, or you go in single file, or if you're alone, you have a little more freedom. I really just make these comments for education, like just for when you need to do it, not necessarily saying you're doing anything wrong right now. It's just long as you know that the better line and that holds more speed is coming from taking a slightly wider approach into something like that, especially because the wider you take that entry to the chicane, it sets you up on the right side or middle right of the next left-hand turn, which then you can virtually straight line through there without having your bike leaned over hardly at all. Again, anytime your bike goes from upright to leaning over, it's causing friction in the tires. The tire contact patch expands and your bike is slowing down. You may not notice it, but it is. It's slowing down anytime you go from upright to any type of lean angle. It basically slows down. All right, Marlaina could do a little better job there of hitting an apex, but the wide approach is a little better, but she could hug it closer to that fence as far as just hitting an apex. And if it's a decreasing radius turn, you want to hit a later apex. You don't want to hit early. You don't want to be on the inside of the turn early. You want to be as late as possible. The more the turn decreases, you want to be as late as possible. So here, this is what I was saying. If they're slightly right, you can just straight line this here, which is virtually what she did a little bit. But again, start from the left and you can almost go straight through that chicane without hardly turning at all. And this turn, technically, you can use it as a double apex, hit the apex there at the turn they just did, run it a little wide, and then just double it here with one big turn. But you do have to be carrying a lot more speed. And just with Melissa there turning and being back on the right side of the road, that is like the slower way to do it, because that means your bike is turning more instead of running it over to the left side. And you can stand your bike up faster. It wouldn't be as steep as the lean angle, and you can carry a lot more speed through there. And it'll really come into play a little bit later. I'll point it out when it happens. But yeah, you'll see why I'm making it a point for this. So now they have it working together well. I think I told them when they came by last time that they broke the field. They have at least a 30, 40 second lead now. And yeah, they completely broke the field. And for the most part, the rest of the field has a different power profile. You know, we have some of the major motion women, which are really good sprinters. But when often, as most of you know, when you're a really good sprinter, sometimes you just lack that high sustained power, you know, because your body's just made a little bit different, and you're usually a little bit more explosive. but you lack a little bit of the slow twitch muscles to maintain solid power for a long time. Of course, it's all trainable, but that's just how it is at the moment. That's why a lot of sprinters are not breakaway guys at the same time. So and then you got two teammates in the back there with Ellen and Ashley. They of course are not going to run it down. Emmy is riding solo, so she doesn't really have any help to try to run it down. And as you can see, she tried to cover moves early, but that is really taxing if you have to cover multiple moves early. I think Emmy covered Melissa on one or two breakaways, and Jules on one, not a breakaway, but when Jules was setting tempo earlier. So yeah, that takes a lot out of you when you're riding by yourself. And even though she's strong and can be in the break, it's kind of hard to be running down moves by yourself. So here, as you can see, like I would turn in just a little bit later. Marlaina turns in a little bit early. It's a good turn though. Could be again like a little bit better apex, but that's about it.
It's $100 to both of us.
I think the ladies are talking here, discussing a little bit of I wouldn't say a deal, but just cooperation, because when you have a break like this and they're giving out big money on the preems, so Melissa's a little too tight, and that's what I mean right there. If you can see the angle she took with that little hump and decreasing radius there, she have to turn her bike tighter, and that tight lean angle almost had her high side a little bit there just from foot rubbing and the back tire sliding out, which anytime you bottom out a pedal, that lifts your rear wheel. So so just want to take a little bit wider approach there. We get a little overconfident sometimes, all of us. In our race, people hit peg too multiple times, but we get a little overconfident with being able to pedal through corners, which is great because it allows you to save a little energy and keep your speed higher and not surge. But you also just have to be conscious and take the right angle into that turn, and then just know what your clearance is. So here I'm just telling Marlaina to be smart, think about what her strengths are. When you're two up, that's the ultimate frenemies situation where, yep, they're friendly, splitting the Red Sea right there with the instructor and the junior rider. But yeah, you're friendly, you have a frenemy, you guys are gonna work together to each of your benefits to stay away from the pack. But at some point, someone's going to have to pull out that knife and stab the other one in the back and make a little attack or something, and then the romance is over. So, yeah, so right now what they're doing is they make it a little agreement of just, hey, let's work together, not fight for the preems. The preems are $100 each, which is a decent amount of money. And but luckily, the preem, they ended up giving it to first and second place in the preem, so there was no need to fight for it anyway. You often see that happen sometimes where people start they break the friendship a little too early, and once you break the friendship a little too early, you start slowing down, and then the group has a chance of catching back up. So you see now Marlaina and Melissa, they're starting to lap a couple people in the field. Again, with Marlaina there, that's good angles on the turn, but just, it may behoove you to hit the apex a little better. And really that would be going inside of that manhole there, especially when you take it from that approach. Carried good speed though, went through the turn at about 25 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken.
Make sure not to do all the work.
So now the instructor comes up and she gives Marlaina good advice. She tells her, hey, be careful, don't do all the work, because Marlaina's taking some really long pulls, and she's telling her like, hey, don't do all the work. The only thing I disagree with is she also tells her that, hey, you have a teammate coming up here. However, and that teammate is Ellen, my wife, but Ellen is lapped. And I know people do it all the time. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago, but technically, I don't know on every event if someone changes it, but we looked it up in the rule book, and you cannot work with someone that's on a separate lap. We've seen people do it. We've seen people do it in the pro field. We've seen a lapped rider lead out people for a victory, but technically you cannot race or ride with someone that is on a different lap, even if they're on your teammate. I mean, even if they're on your team. That person that is lapped can jump back into the peloton, but they should not be interfering, and they can't give assistance to someone on another lap, and technically they can't get assistance for someone on another lap to like make up a spot or anything. So if you're just off the back and you jump back into the peloton and just cruise it out with the peloton to end the race, that's great. But yeah, that would not be right if Ellen now tag team Melissa with Marlaina to get Marlaina a victory. These two girls have earned the breakaway, and it really should be fought between them two. So, all right, now we're going into the last lap. This is the final lap here. And there's a little bit of a dilemma for Marlaina now. She's really strong. She can TT like nobody's business. So, yeah, she has a choice to make now. Do I launch and, try to break Melissa over this next, half a mile or so, or whatever the lap is, 6.6 of a mile, or do I wait until the sprint on the end? So as you can see, the effort has went down. The mistake, in my opinion, here is the fact that the effort goes down. So now they're down to 16 miles per hour. And if you're in the lead and you're doing less than 20 miles per hour, that gives your opponent the perfect opportunity to jump on you, and it's going to be really hard to catch. So that's why you need to keep the speed high. You don't need to burn yourself out, but you need to keep the speed high enough if you're going to be the one on the front, that if that person attacks, she's going to have to really put in a hard effort, and it won't be as easy for me to close the gap. So earlier they're going through here fairly fast, and now they're kind of like chilling. You can see Marlaina's barely doing 200 watts, and then Melissa jumps and attacks here. So Marlaina was a little bit slow to react. So Melissa's going for it now. They only have, a few hundred yards to go. And as she turns the corner here, she turns a little bit too tight and almost loses the wheel again. Marlaina launches her sprint, which, as you can see, she has a really good sprint. She's catching Melissa like really fast, but just ran out of time there. So kudos to Melissa. Great job to both of them for working together and creating that breakaway. And they end up winning by over a minute. So anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.